It was a cold evening in a quiet town. The kind of evening where the streets felt heavy with silence, and the air seemed colder than it should have been. Inside a small, dimly lit diner, a young waitress named Emily was wiping down tables, her tired eyes reflecting a life of endless routine. She didn't know it yet, but a single choice she made that night would change her life forever. Because sitting outside, shivering beneath the neon glow of the diner's sign, was a man who looked broken, a man who hadn't eaten in days, whose face told a story of pain, loss, and abandonment. Most people walked past him without a second glance, but Emily didn't. She looked at him and saw something more. A human being in desperate need of kindness. So she made a decision. One act of compassion. One plate of food. She thought it was nothing. Just another day of doing the right thing. But the next morning, when a sleek black limousine pulled up to the diner, and that same man stepped out. Clean, dressed, and unrecognizable. Emily's world turned upside down. What she didn't know was that this man had a secret. And by feeding him, she had fed her own destiny. Emily was only 24 years old, but life had aged her beyond her years. She worked double shifts at the diner not because she loved the job, but because she had no choice. Bills stacked up faster than her paycheck. And with her mother sick at home and medical expenses piling higher every month, Emily carried the weight of 2 lives on her slender shoulders. Her days always began the same way. She'd wake up before dawn in a small, worn-down apartment where the wallpaper peeled at the corners and the floorboards groaned under her tired steps. She'd tiptoe past her mother's bedroom, listening to the faint, wheezing coughs, and whisper a quiet promise. "I'll make things better, Mom. Just hold on." The diner was her second home, though not by choice. The smell of fried food clung to her hair, the constant chatter of customers filled her ears, and the long hours left her feet swollen and her back aching. Yet Emily never complained. She smiled, served, and listened. To her, every stranger was a story waiting to be heard. But beneath her kind smile was exhaustion. Beneath her polite greetings was silent fear. Fear that no matter how hard she worked, it would never be enough. And then, there was him. The homeless man. Dirty clothes, tangled beard, trembling hands clutching his chest against the cold. People saw a burden. Emily saw someone's son, someone's brother, someone who had once dreamed. Just like her. That night, as she caught sight of him through the foggy diner window, she felt her heart tug. Something told her this was not just another stranger. The world can be cruel. People walked past him like he was invisible. Some wrinkled their noses, others muttered insults under their breath. The man had grown used to it. After all, society had taught him to expect nothing. When Emily stepped outside with a steaming plate of food in her hands, he stared at her in disbelief. "For me?" he asked. His voice cracked and weak. She smiled softly. "For you." He hesitated. Shame filled his eyes. I can't pay." "You don't have to," she interrupted gently. "Eat, please." The man's eyes glistened. It had been so long since someone had shown him kindness that he almost forgot what it felt like. Slowly, he accepted the plate, his hands trembling. As he ate, tears rolled down his weathered face, each bite tasting of warmth and humanity he thought he had lost forever. Emily sat beside him for a moment, ignoring the curious stares from passing customers. "What's your name?" she asked. He swallowed hard. "Daniel?" She nodded. "Nice to meet you, Daniel. Take care of yourself, okay?" He wanted to say more, but the lump in his throat silenced him. That night, Emily walked back inside the diner, thinking nothing more of it. Just another small act of kindness in a world that desperately needed more. But what she didn't know was that Daniel wasn't just any homeless man. His story was far more complicated, far more tragic, and far more powerful than anyone could imagine. The real question was, why had a man like him ended up on the streets? And why? The very next morning, would he return? Not as the man she fed, but as someone entirely different. The night after feeding Daniel, Emily went home exhausted. Her mother's condition had worsened, the electricity bill was overdue, and her paycheck seemed like a cruel joke compared to the mountain of debt she faced. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how long she could keep going. Meanwhile, Daniel didn't sleep at all. He sat under the same neon diner sign, replaying the waitress's words in his head. For you. Such simple words. But they lit a fire inside him. Because Daniel was no ordinary man. He had once been the CEO of a successful company, a man with wealth, power, and influence. But after a devastating betrayal by his business partner, followed by the sudden death of his wife, his world crumbled. Depression swallowed him whole. He walked away from everything, vanishing into the streets, believing he deserved the suffering. But Emily's kindness was like a mirror, showing him that even in his brokenness, he was still worth something. As Emily struggled with her mother's failing health and the crushing weight of poverty, Daniel made a decision that would change both their lives. But for Emily, the struggles only deepened. That week, the diner's manager threatened to cut her hours. The landlord knocked on her door, demanding overdue rent. At night, she cried quietly, careful not to wake her mother. She was drowning, and nobody seemed to care. Nobody, except a stranger she thought she would never see again. Because while Emily believed she had saved a homeless man with a plate of food, the truth was, Daniel was preparing to save her in ways she couldn't imagine. But how? And why? The answer came the very next morning, in the form of a black limousine that stopped right outside her diner. The diner was buzzing that morning, the clatter of dishes and chatter of customers filling the air. Emily balanced plates on her arms, her face pale from lack of sleep. Then, suddenly, the noise outside silenced the room. A sleek black limousine pulled up to the curb. Its tinted windows gleamed under the sunlight. Customers turned their heads, whispering, "Who's that? What's a limo doing here?" Emily barely noticed, too focused on her work, until the diner door opened. And there he was. Daniel. But he didn't look the same. His beard was trimmed, his clothes were clean, and his posture was proud. He looked powerful, respectable, like a man who belonged to another world entirely. Emily froze, the plates trembling in her hands. "Daniel," she whispered. He smiled softly. "Hello, Emily." The room went silent. Every eye was on them. Emily's heart raced. What was happening? Why was he here? And why did he look so different? "Can we talk?" Daniel asked gently. Confused, she nodded and followed him outside. Her hands shook, her mind spinning with questions. Daniel took a deep breath. "I owe you an explanation. You thought I was just a homeless man. And I was, but only because I had lost myself. You reminded me of something I had forgotten. That kindness still exists. That people still care." He paused, his eyes glistening. "You saved me, Emily. And now, I want to return the favor." Emily stared at him, stunned. "Return the favor? I don't understand." Daniel smiled, pulling a small envelope from his coat pocket. He handed it to her. With trembling fingers, Emily opened it. Inside was a check. Enough money to cover her mother's medical bills, her rent and more. Tears welled in her eyes. "Daniel, I can't accept this." "Yes, you can." He interrupted firmly. "Because this isn't charity. This is gratitude. You gave me food when I had nothing. You gave me dignity when the world had stripped it away. That one act pulled me back from the edge. You reminded me of the man I used to be." He looked at her with deep sincerity. "I was once wealthy. I lost everything because I gave up. But your kindness made me want to fight again. And now, I want to fight for you." Emily broke down, covering her face with her hands. The weight of her struggles suddenly felt lighter, not because of the money, but because someone finally saw her. Someone cared. The customers inside the diner watched through the windows, their eyes wide, their hearts moved. They weren't just seeing a waitress and a stranger. They were witnessing the power of compassion come full circle. Daniel placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You fed a hungry man, Emily. But what you really fed was hope. And hope can change everything." That day marked the beginning of a new chapter in Emily's life. With Daniel's help, her mother received the medical care she desperately needed. The bills no longer crushed her spirit, and the constant fear that haunted her began to fade. But more than money, Emily received something greater, proof that kindness never goes unnoticed. Daniel visited often, not as a benefactor, but as a friend. Together, they reminded the town that even the smallest act of compassion can ripple outward in ways no one could predict. Customers at the diner began treating the homeless differently. Neighbors started looking out for one another. The story of Emily and Daniel spread, igniting sparks of kindness everywhere. And Emily learned something she would carry forever. When you give without expecting anything in return, the universe has a way of giving back in the most unexpected, beautiful ways. Her mother once told her, kindness is never wasted. Now, Emily understood. Because a simple plate of food had not only saved a man's life, it had transformed her own. What about you? If you were in Emily's shoes that night, would you have stopped to feed a homeless man? Or would you have walked away? This story is a reminder that even the smallest act of compassion can change the course of someone's life. If this touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more emotional, true to life stories that remind us of the power of kindness.